Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord and Jake Gordon. We got some positive injury updates again on Max Fried, who is working his way back. He played on Friday for Gwinnett in the afternoon. He pitched 35 pitches. It was obviously, a very limited outing. He only made it an inning plus. He gave up a couple hits, gave up some walks, got out of jams. Most importantly, though, to me, I'm looking at that velocity. When you're coming off something like forearm discomfort that could be potentially Tommy John. You're really looking if the stuff's still there. It was there. He was up at 96, 97, came up after it, said he felt great. I think it all was positives, all pluses. He felt great. His velocity was there. Yes, of course, he was a little rusty. The guy hasn't pitched in 2 months. Like, that's going to happen, even in AAA Gwinnett. I think next time he'll probably be up around 50 pitches. Then I think you look him go to about 75. And then I think he goes 90. So I think 3 more starts is probably what he's going to do. I think you're aiming for a late July return for Max Fried, which is perfectly fine. Gives you 2 months of the regular season where there's not going to be a ton of pressure because you have a 10-game lead in the division. He should be just fine, working his way out, revamping him, finding his stuff by the time October rolls around, which is really, as we just said, all that really matters.
Yeah, I talked about this too. They're definitely going to take it slow, as they should. They just got the All-Star break right now. They have some time before the trade deadline. And as our old friend Chip Carey would say, it's like making a trade without making a trade, But it's good to see Fried out there pitching well. I did get a firsthand account. My buddy Tucker Bradley, proud Omaha Storm chaser, said he looked good. That's all I got for you.
Yeah. I know it might not seem like it in terms of there's been some shaky outings, like the Bryce Elder one we just had, but the rotation and the bullpen ranks among like first, second, third, fourth, or fifth, and nearly every metric. The rotation and the bullpen, and
I think combined they're the first in baseball in ERA.
Yeah, I mean, and they're only going to get better. I mean, you're only going to get better with the best lefty on the planet. The only question is when Max Fried returns to full strength. It's not a question of if, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you also got Dylan Lee, Jesse Chavez. We did get a little scared there with AJ Minter, who I know, Jake, you wrote about on the site. Go follow us, sportstalkatl.com. All the stuff that we talk about is always up there. I know. I mean, he's easily the most valuable reliever we have on the team. That's one guy that in the bullpen, you can't lose that guy. I know he's had some struggles early in the season, but you go look at his advanced numbers, it's all pointing towards positive regression. He's been much better of late over the last 6 weeks.
He has a 1.5 ERA in his last 20 something outings. He's fine. He's back.
Yeah.
Other than this
we knew he was due for some positive regression because what he was getting so unlucky at the beginning of the year. And that's how you can really weed out the casuals is when people are like, oh, he's awful, get rid of him, send him to AAA. He does this every year for a month or two, and he was just getting extremely unlucky, and he's been locked down ever since.
Yeah, I mean, he's by far the most valuable reliever on the Braves. He's the one guy, especially during the postseason. I mean, we've seen this guy go 2-3 innings and strike out 5-6 batters. I mean, he is an absolute weapon to have out of the bullpen. So it just seemed to be pack tightness. He said he was fine. Looks like everything checks out. I assume he'll be back full strength after the All-Star break. I don't expect this to be any kind of IL stint or anything like that. He should be completely fine, which is huge news for the Braves because you talk about maybe one weakness. If you get a guy like Minter going down, that could be a potential weakness for the Braves on this roster because I think that's the only place that has the slightest, tiniest bit of holes. Even though that they've been better, I think that's the only place that really has any holes on this entire roster.
Yeah, I would just want to say something. Hat tip to AJ Minter, for the maturity to take yourself out of a game in that kind of situation. Because a lot of guys, the young guys who just, they want to prove it. They want to prove they're the guy, might try and battle through something like that. They feel something, but they're like, no, I can get through it. So hat tip to AJ Minter because who knows, if he had tried to push through, it could have been turned into something worse. He recognizes how valuable he is to the team. Where we are in the season, there's no need for anybody to push, a potential injury at this point. It's like you said, Jake, it's just all about being healthy. That's what's going to stop this team is being healthy.
Yeah. While we're on the conversation, because I was thinking about lefty alternatives, is Dylan Lee okay? I know he went to the IL, and then I feel like we have not heard a word about him in months.
Well, they kind of always gave Max Fried and Dylan Lee like the same reports. Like they both started throwing bullpens around the same time. So I don't know. They said he didn't suffer a setback. I do remember a report maybe about 2 weeks ago where they just said they're just going to shut him down throughout the All-Star break or something like that. It wasn't a setback or anything like that. I think honestly, like it might just have something to do with where he's throwing. They have no rush to bring him back, because when you look at this bullpen, you have so many arms where I've talked about this several times. Like, I don't know who gets left off. Like when Jesse Chavez comes back, he's obviously needs to have a place on the roster. Like Michael Tonkin's been great. Like you don't have this rush to get these guys back. You kind of want to see if any of these guys, Ben Heller, if they kind of fall off or experience some regression to where you're like, okay, now we'll put them in their spot.
It's crazy to say, but right now, all things considered, if you just go with a bullpen arm, which they won't, it'll probably be Coley Allard or somebody. It might be Joe Jimenez. Like it's tough to make some choices, and whenever there's a guy who has a
Jimenez has like a 0.5 ERA over his last 15 appearances. And Kirby Yates has been fantastic.
I genuinely don't know who it would be. I think it would have to be the starter. It would have to be Allard. It would have to be somebody, but it's just so hard to cut one of these guys.
I mean,
right
Tonkin has like a 2.5 ERA on the year, and he's great for just being a nice long reliever. Like you need guys like that, and you need a guy like that in your bullpen. So it's hard to cut him, even though he would be my first choice. Heller's looked really good, and I love his stuff. And it's like, did you find a gem in this guy? So and you obviously can't get rid of Jimenez or Yates. And like then I start thinking about, like, are we going to do this damn thing to Chavez again? Like this poor guy, has a 1.55 ERA, gets injured, and they're probably just going to be like, you know what, man, we love you, Jesse, but we're going to waive you. Like, we'll see you in October.
I just don't know what they're going to do about it, because you can't just keep doing these bullpen games. Yeah, I get it. The bullpen's great. It gives you a great chance to win, but you're going to throw the arms off these guys before October. So it's a tough choice.
I don't see them going to bullpen. I think they will just kind of roll. But Soroka, when Fried comes back, Soroka's been decent. Like I'm still a believer in Soroka. I think he needs these innings, and once he keeps getting them, I think he's going to figure it out. We saw him make some huge pitches against Cleveland and the Guardians his last time out, even though he didn't make it very far. Still threw 100 pitches without giving up a run. Like that. That's very encouraging. So, hey, it's a good problem to have. And it's like when I think about trade deadline and stuff like that and trade targets, I'm like, but then who else then you're really getting into it? Because now you got Lee, Chavez, Fried, maybe Wright. Like AJ Smith-Shawver is still a stud. Like you just got so many arms. Like it really is an embarrassment of riches for this club with their arms. Coming up after the break, we're going to break down the Braves' first day of MLB draft picks.